This is a More Than Just Podcast production.
Welcome to Spotcast Season 7, Episode 12. My name is Tim Mitra. I am in Toronto, Ontario, and I'm joined once again by Jaime Lopez Jr. in Seattle, Washington.
How's it going?
And I'm also joined by Jaime Lopez Kuline. No, Jonathan Kuline in Mississauga, Ontario.
I only wish I could be Jaime Lopez Kuline. I really feel like that would be great for me.
That's the transporter accident.
That's right. As opposed to JPK?
That's right.
Yeah.
I think the two of us, I'm kind of wondering. So I'm bald. Jaime's got great hair. What would be the middle ground?
You have like a beard or goatee or something, right?
And you're not a dev.
I've got a pretty thick, full beard right now, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So the dev with the hair on the bottom?
That's right. Dev with the facial hair.
Dev with the facial hair, I guess, yeah. Yeah, the reason why I did that, Jaime, was last week I rolled off the tongue, that you were on the show, and Jonathan went, no. Because I always introduce Jaime second on More Than Just Code. And anyway, I cut that out of the show, but you can probably hear me chuckle if you go back and listen to the episode as I'm introducing Jonathan. But anyway, there you have it. Little behind the scenes, how the sausage is made and all that stuff behind inside baseball. Is that what we call it? Inside baseball. All right, so let's get into the fact check. So I was talking last week about Clara, the Doctor Who companion, I think she was companion for 2, if not 3 doctors. Yeah, I think she might have crossed paths with David Tennant at some point too. But she was a governess back in an episode that took place in 1892, where she meets Matt Smith's doctor on a Christmas special. So I was right; it was in 2012, and it was called The Snowman. And I'm not sure if maybe I can dig into a bit more about why they brought her back. But she ended up being in the show with Capaldi and a few more shows with Matt Smith as well, right? So, and then I think she became the TARDIS in the end, if I'm not mistaken, or something like that. And repeat after me. Ready? Are you guys ready? Peter Davidson is the 5th Doctor.
You'd think that would stick in our memory after a while.
No, repeat after me. Peter Davidson is the 5th Doctor.
Peter Davidson is the 5th. Okay, I got it now.
And he's also David Tennant's father-in-law.
I think we should have that as a permanent note.
I had to Google this. So there is Peter Davison, no D, no second D
Davison,
in there.
Yeah.
And then there's Pete Davidson from SNL, formerly SNL. Wait,
did I spell it with a D? What?
It looks like it probably auto-completed is what I would guess.
Yeah, maybe. Davison, yeah, yes. And he was the younger brother in All Creatures Great and Small, which was another famous, which is why it was weird for me that he became the Doctor, because he was a well-known character to me when I was younger watching All Creatures Great and Small. He played the brother of the head veterinarian there. Anywho, so he's the 5th Doctor, and I don't know why I keep slipping on his name, Peter Davison. I'm going to fix the spelling here so it burns into my brain. I'm going to get that tattooed on my forehead, maybe, or something.
Yeah, I feel like we need to go full memento on this and just,
write it on my hand, maybe?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Well, that's pretty much all the fact check we have for today, and so we can dig into the headlines. Oh, look, I'm up first. I happened to stumble across an extended, I guess sort of the first real preview of Section 31. Did you guys get a chance to watch that one?
I did.
Yeah. Got a bit more mystery in there, and I noticed that and now we got to look up the race, the gentleman that we talk about on the show all the time, that Frank Gorshin played with the white on one side and black on the other side.
Yep.
Now let's go look that up. Well, and what else did you guys notice about that episode while I look up the other thing about the preview? It looks pretty good, right? Speak to me.
Yeah, I'm at a loss because it definitely sets a vibe. It has the they've never faced Starfleet has never faced a challenge or a threat like this, which I'm like, all right, that's a bit.
Wait, what?
They should just stop using that line. Just put it in ChatGPT.
Some sort of threat from somewhere in space.
Yeah, we must go on some sort of voyage or trek to go get it.
Yeah, perhaps. Yes. Sorry, how we interrupted you?
No, it's coming out pretty soon, January 24th. So we're about a month away. We've been waiting to see what happened to former Emperor Giorgio and her joyride with the Section 31 crew.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that it's always weird we get like the second or multiple trailers where it's like, yeah, this one has a little more detail in it, but it also is just like, just show me the damn movie already. Like, I don't want any more spoilers. I'm already psyched. Like, I don't know. I guess this is for like the non-Trek obsessive who are just like, come on, you want Paramount Plus. It's on sale. It's Black Friday week. Woo!
Yeah. So, just for reference here, so the Let That Be Your Last Battlefield, episode 70 of the original series, starred Frank Gorshin and Lou Antonio. I can't remember who that is, but clearly Frank Gorshin is black on the right side and white on the left side, and the other gentleman is white on the right side and black on the left side. So I think the character in the trailer is the same as Frank Gorshin, right? Black on the
right hand, his right hand side, and white on his left hand side.
Unless he's looking in a mirror, or he's on a Zoom call.
Yeah, you never know if they flip the video on some of these. So does that tell us which one of the two races? I forget what they called them in that episode.
I don't know. I have to go look now. I'll have to go look it up. Well, I keep talking. I went down the rabbit hole of looking at the pictures. So I figured there'd be a picture of them, right? But it doesn't really give you access to the episode. So it's got to be season 2, maybe. Actually, 70 would probably be season 3, I guess, right? Because these are 24 shows per season. So we never would have figured that out. Like, it's not super obvious, I guess, unless maybe Jonathan, if he was watching the show when he was like as an adult, he might have noticed, right?
Yeah. Again, I don't think I guess I have rewatched Star Trek as an adult, the original series, but yeah, my wouldn't have caught it the first time for sure.
Yeah, it sounds like we have to go to Memory Alpha because it just says in the description here, the Enterprise encounters 2 duochromatic and mutually belligerent aliens. No, he plays Bele. I guess we can go to Memory Loci and Bele. So go to Memory Alpha and look them up. Anyway, so yeah, this Emperor Giorgio, whatever we're calling her now, Captain Giorgio. What are we calling her now?
Yeah, I don't know how because they disguised the fact that she was the emperor in the past of the. Oh my god, my brain hurts. They never called her the emperor anymore in the last time she was on Discovery, right? They were just calling her Georgiou.
Oh, okay,
I think that's right.
Georgiou, yeah,
I think so.
Yeah, so guess that's what she'll be going by.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they'll give her a rank, commander, captain. She looks pretty captain-y there. I mean, she was Captain Georgiou in the other alternate version who dies in the early parts of Discovery.
Yeah,
spoilers.
She's stepmother or whatever, or adopted mother of Michael Burnham, right?
Well, this one was. Yeah. The original one wasn't.
Was it?
No, the original one was just her captain, right? The one that she meets on?
Oh, yeah. You're right about that. In the Prime universe.
Yeah, see, this is what we get. Timey-wimey, folks.
We get what we get when we mess with the multiverses, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, Frank Gorshin plays Commissioner Bele, who is from the planet Charon.
Hmm.
So they're Charonians, I guess. Right?
Yep.
Oh, cool. All right. And then the second trailer I've got up here is for Severance Season 2. Have you guys watched Severance at all?
I'm up to speed with that. Full 3 years ago, apparently.
Yeah, I haven't, and I feel a little like I know it was a thing even 3 years ago, and now that it's ramping up to season 2, everyone's like, "Oh my god, Severance!" So I know it's on my to-do list over the holidays to sit down and finally watch that.
So if you ever worked in an enterprise level office, you'll totally get it. But
I might have done that.
Super interesting show. Made me glad I don't work in a cubicle anymore, which is great. Or do mindless work. Yeah, so it's a good show. And of course, it's Ben Stiller's the director, right? So it's got all kinds of really good twists and turns. It's very, very intellectual, right?
Yeah, I've heard they added some interesting actors for season 2 as well. Like, I heard that John Noble was coming, and who are the other people I heard? But it sounds like it's a pretty good cast. So yeah, I will catch up.
Yeah, it's got Christopher Walken in it, so it's got to be good, right?
That's usually the standard of goodness. How much Walken?
How much Walken? There's a lot of Walken in that one. Yeah, it ends on a kind of, the season 1 ends on a kind of a cliffhanger, so I think we're all kind of waiting for that shoe to drop, right? So yeah, which is good. Yeah, looking forward to it. It's a fun show. I mean, and I like the fact that they release it 1 week at a time, so you'll get to binge it, but it was kind of nice to sort of have the week to sort of digest what you just saw, right?
Yeah. I still prefer that to the dump of episodes. I still remember the trauma of when they dropped the last 2 chunks of Stranger Things and just trying to dodge spoilers like they were, giant hailstones falling from the sky.
Yeah. Cool. Well, over to you, Jonathan, for some more headlines.
Yeah, so we were chatting about this on the old Slack channel with our followers this week, but the news came out that Chris Evans is going to be returning to the MCU in Avengers Doomsday. So it's interesting. We already know that Robert Downey Jr. is going to be Doctor Doom. They haven't said who Chris Evans is going to play. It could be Captain America again. It could be Johnny Storm, Fantastic Four again. It could be old Captain America, who we last saw at the end of Avengers Endgame. Or it could be somebody completely different. Or
it could be Commissioner Bele, for all we know.
Or it could be all of the above, because this is going to be a big multiversal shenanigans wrapping up this whole arc. So it could be multiple characters for all we know. I guess the question is, what's the best answer? Is it better if he's playing somebody completely different? Is it better if he's playing Cap? Is it better as Johnny Storm, the Human Torch again? Old Cap? Do they go back into a different timeline and get a different Cap?
Maybe he's the guy who's making the fissures.
Yes, that could be it.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe he's on the bridge with Boimler.
Does it matter really at the end of the day? Does it really matter? Like, I know it's important, but
I mean, it's an Avengers movie. Everybody's going to go, so it's fine. But I guess this will be one of the big talking points. Is what is this?
Yeah.
I do wonder if it gets funnier if they just start adding more dead characters, or passed on characters.
I mean,
Scarlett Johansson next.
Exactly that. Yeah.
Wanda, not Wanda Maxwell.
Elizabeth Olsen, yeah.
Thank you. Elizabeth Olsen comes back.
Yeah. I think that would be great. I think they'd just be like, honestly, wouldn't it be great if it was just they were all playing the dead Avengers or something?
Really, really kind of a weird approach.
Lucas Lee.
Yeah.
Or Buzz Lightyear.
Yeah. Really? The bad guy from Knives Out.
You mean Ransom Disdale?
That's right, Ransom. Yes. How could I forget a name like that? All right. Next up, the awards season is starting to ramp up a little bit. We have started getting some of the sort of year-end awards, and we're starting to get nominations for some of the more high-profile awards. The first sort of big domino that fell this week was the Golden Globe Award nominations. The Golden Globes is still a mess. It's still not a perfect indicator of what are going to be the big nominations for things like Oscars and Emmys and all that. But there's certainly
it's also the foreign press, isn't it? Like, isn't it?
It is.
British?
It used to be the Hollywood Foreign Press, which meant you had to be a foreign press member living in Los Angeles. Now I guess they've expanded it to be foreign press from other places. They're trying to sort of change the culture a little bit because it used to be very glad-handy. But now it's hopefully a little better. That being said, the nominations are out. Some things that were nominated make sense. Some things that were nominated do not make sense. I have not seen all of the best, movies of the year. There's still a few that I would like to check off before we get to full into award season. But Dune Part 2 was nominated for Best Drama Motion Picture, which was nice to see, alongside a lot of movies that I've never heard of or seen. The Brutalist, I've heard, is one of the best pictures. I've seen that on a few lists of best pictures of the year. Complete Unknown, that's the Bob Dylan movie. Conclave has got a lot of acclaim. Nickel Boys is the other one, and September 5th, the other nomination for that. So it's a weird list. And they do a separate category for drama and for musical. So in musical or comedy, they've got Anora, Challengers, Emilia Perez, A Real Pain, The Substance, which is theoretically a bit of a sci-fi-y kind of horror-y kind of thing, and Wicked, which is fantasy. So that's, we'll call that.
Three of those movies were big
TIFF movies, yeah.
Notable movies at TIFF, right? Yeah. Anora, Emily Perez, and The Substance.
Yeah.
So.
Yep.
I think Anora won.
I've heard Anora is really quite the gripping view. I'm looking forward to seeing that. I love that the Best Animated Motion Picture nominees include Wallace and Gromit: Vengeance Most Foul, which has not even been released yet. So that's pretty neat. I'm guessing somewhere out there someone must have access to screening copies of this because it made the list.
The Wild Robot is another one I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, and, I'd like to see that one.
I think we've all seen Inside Out too, right?
I have not seen it yet.
Yeah, I was waiting. Oh, okay. Wait, it might be on Disney Plus now. I gotta take a look.
It is on Disney Plus. It's
on Vision Pro too.
There you go.
In 3D.
The award nominees for the different categories for actor and actress and stuff like that, and nothing in the drama area that sort of fits our area. Cynthia Erivo was nominated for Wicked for musical or comedy, best female performance. This
is a weird one. Which one is it? Is it cinematic or box office achievement?
Yeah, that's their populist kind of play.
Well, isn't Wicked gonna run away with that one?
Yeah,
it's like carrying out the box office,
which is good, and it's not actually. It won't be the biggest movie of the year. It's apparently doing quite well in North America and has not done well outside of North America because. And I did not know this until I happened to be listening to another podcast earlier today about film, and they were saying that The Wizard of Oz is actually not as big or outside of North America. So, yeah. So apparently it's doing quite well
against
for
Deadpool
us.
And Wolverine. So,
well, yeah. I mean, Dune 2 and that, and so that there have been some pretty big movies. Inside Out 2 was the biggest movie so far this year. It made over $1 billion at the box office, so good for them. But yeah, it'll be interesting. I'm just going to put a little tease here for the forthcoming Spockies Awards, which will be coming in January. It was not a banner year for television movies revolving around sci-fi. There's a lot of content, and it was not the best of content. So we will have, I think, our work cut out for us to really narrow down the list. I mean, Furiosa, Dune 2, the list thins very quickly. But that being said, it'll be interesting to see. Not a lot of love for Dune 2 in this. As a matter of fact, Denis Villeneuve did not get nominated for Best Director, which is, I don't even know how you do that. And so it'll be interesting to see when they start coming around to the bigger award nominations like the Oscars, if we'll see, a longer list of honors for Dune 2. I suspect it'll probably get at least a nomination in a bunch of different categories. It's just a question of whether it'll actually pull anything off. I sincerely doubt that it will. Cinematography, I don't know. It's hard to say.
Well, TV shows are interesting. They've got Christian Milioti
for the Penguin, yeah.
And the Penguin's nominated. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, some of these are good. Like TV shows are not much. We've talked about Slow Horses, obviously. And the Penguin nominated for shows, right? In different categories. And The Bear, of course.
Yep.
But it's up against Shogun, so
Shogun was a big winner so far. It's on a lot of people's end of year top list and everything. So, yep, and Colin Farrell was also nominated for the Penguin. So,
the Penguin, right,
got some love.
That would be an interesting one. Yeah.
But let's see.
Kevin Kline was good in Disclaimer too,
and Jack Lowden got a nomination for Slow Horses. So, bravo. Anyway, that's.
Do you know Jack Loudon's married to?
Saoirse Ronan, isn't? Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well done, Jack.
Yeah. Well done, Saoirse. Saoirse. Sorry.
So she's a Saoirse.
Saoirse.
All right. And I had to throw this in for our last story of the week. So VHS cassettes are a thing again for some reason. There is a little trend. It's a little trend. It's not a huge trend, but it is a notable trend that studios are putting out VHS copies of new movies. The most notable of which is Alien Romulus, which is getting a VHS release. There was a great quote in here from Fede Alvarez, the director, who said, it's very easy to be seen as just a stunt, just a promotional thing, but it's not at all for me. I discovered those movies, the Alien movies, in that format and that vibe and that style, that sort of color range and spectrum of sound. It has such a very specific vibe to it, and as soon as you play it, as soon as I play it, it just takes me there. It puts a magic on it because I was born in 78, so when the boom of VHS was happening, that's when I was really discovering films, and so it's very special for me that the studios actually agreed to do this. That is the quote. That's the quote from Fede Alvarez, the director of this. $60 is the price for the VHS copy of yeah. So if you still,
I have some VHSs in a box in the basement here somewhere. If
interested, you feel so inclined for your holiday gift giving or asking to own a VHS copy of Alien Romulus, you can. This article that we'll have in the show notes from the good folks at IO9 also notes that there's been a couple other movies like Y2K, which is a sort of a horror-ish movie, and Stream, another sort of horror-ish genre movie, that have also gotten releases. And I feel like this one falls in the same category as the strange resurgence of cassette tapes, which there are certainly some of those coming back, and I find myself thinking, I lived through those eras. Cassettes sucked, and so did VHS cassettes, and I appreciate that people feel wistful and nostalgic. I lived through that whole phase, but I'd prefer to have it on a format that's, good. So I'm going to say no to that.
Clear.
Yeah.
Doesn't skip. Yeah. Doesn't get torn.
Yeah. Like, do you remember what it was like to be sitting there? Jaime, even you must be old enough to remember the sound as you were sitting there when you were watching something, and all of a sudden you heard as it started totally devouring your VHS cassette.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No, I'll pass on that one again. Thank you. And I do still have I have two working VHS machines here in the house. One of them is a combo DVD VHS machines. So yeah, they're like, yes, there are certainly some things that I'm very nostalgic for. I don't sit down and watch a lot of movies on VHS anymore. More than anything, it's, stuff that I recorded off the television set because it's like, wow, look at all the commercials. These are weird. But so Tim, should I put that on your list for this year? Did you want No, you don't want the Alien. I mean, it's a real conversation piece.
You can get me one in carbonite, maybe, but
Jaime, can we put you down for one?
Yeah, just like Tim, I would be thinking about having one of these, never doing anything, just getting it graded, put in a box, and then trying to convince everybody online the Alien Romulus 24-hour challenge, so people start wearing them out, so that in a few years it's worth a lot of money.
Yeah, really.
Because I have one of the pristine editions.
Yeah. Yeah.
I have some Star Wars VHSs if you're interested. Letterbox and things like that. No? Okay.
I mean, we'll save that for the after show.
All right. All right. Well, that brings us to the main part of the show where we talk about really good sci-fi, which is this week we're talking about Star Trek Lower Decks, the penultimate. I think they delivered exactly what Jonathan was looking for. We watched season 5, episode 9, Fissure Quest, which had like not just Easter eggs, but huge name drops. So let's dig in, shall we?
Jaime, what do you got?
Yeah, mine is mildly misleading if you had it as the actual pitch, because it would make it seem like this is the main character. But I had Dr. Garrick in the Multiverse of Madness as the closest choice I came up with.
Nice, yeah.
I had The End of the Universe is Nigh. The cause, Harry bleepin' Kim.
Yes, right, exactly. So I have 3 of them, right? The first one is Kim, 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 Kim. The second one is Damn You Two-Pip Kim. Yeah. And the third one, of course, is Shut Up, Harry.
Yeah. Garrett Wong is a great sport. Great sport. To come back and just mock the hell out of his character and blandness as a character for a half an hour on this show. Not that all the Trek guests they've had on don't have a good time kind of, mocking up the stuff that they've done, but this was a special touch.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I mean, guest star bonanza, right? We got T'Pol and Curzon Dax, we got Garrick, we got Bashir, we got Harry Kims, we got Lily Sloan, and
we got transporter clone.
That's right. That's right. And I looked at the credits; these were all the original actors who play all these parts. So, I mean, Alfre Woodard back as Lily Sloan that's pretty awesome. Like that's kind of a level beyond, because she's a legitimately awesome movie star. So.
Now, Julian Bashir was a hologram doctor too, which I think didn't they say at one point?
They were going to turn him into one, right? That was the plan. Yeah.
Yeah. And interesting. T'Pol was listed as Jolene, not Jolene Baker.
Yeah, Blaylock. I don't know why. I don't know. Is she like Sting now or Madonna? Was that a thing? Did I miss that?
I don't know. But, and then, of course, Andrew Robinson, you mentioned already, as Elan Garrick, Alexander Siddig as Julian Bashir.
Yeah, and Garrett Wong, obviously, as many versions of Harry Kim.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there was an Archer name drop as well.
Yeah. Yeah, it was, so, we've been talking about this sort of the whole season, like, is this seems to be where the arc is going. This seemed to be the big thing they were going to land on. And we were a little worried that they were not leaving a lot of landing room for this. So I guess a 2-parter to finish the series is good.
Better than a cliffhanger.
Well, I mean, hopefully they'll land the plane on this one. I think it comes back to what we talked about last week. Like, I love this show so much. I wanted to end well. And this was really fun. It was fun to get some more cameos. It was fun to again, the Harry Kims pointing at each other like the Spider-Man meme was pretty funny. The
name of the ship.
What the one quote? I don't know if you guys had your closed captions on. Paramount didn't get it right, I don't think. But at one point, when they're cutting away from the group of Kims, one of them says, "Hey, what happened with your 2 Vics?"
Yeah, I heard that.
On the captions, it says your 2 Vok, but I don't think that's what he said. I think he said 2 Vics. What happened with your 2 Vics? As in, like, hey, remember the biggest moral quandary that this show's ever presented? What happened with you guys on that one?
Yeah. Well, there was a lot of that too, because the Mariner in this one was an engineer.
Yeah.
And she was from a different. So Boimler and her were saying, "What about your, Rutherford, and what about your Tendi?" And all that. So there was a lot of that back and forth about, do these people still exist within? Do they still have relationships with the people that they're relationships with? And it's interesting that at one point they make a comment about the fact that even though they come from different multiverses, friendship still survives somehow, right?
Yeah.
But and then, of course, one of the quotes I got was "lazy derivative meme remixes."
What did you guys have for your pew pew pews?
It would have to be. I think it was Garrick versus those creatures, sweet creatures, whatever.
Oh, the Koapians
with the what do you call it? The Romulan or the Klingon Batleth.
Yes. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, Curzon on that one.
I liked. I had the Kim mutiny. The second one, when the Kims mutiny against Kim, that was fun.
Yeah, he's the one achiever that he tries to.
Yeah, the one Lieutenant Kim.
Yeah, the one who's realizes that you can't, all these Kims have been in the wrong, overlooked and whatever, and they're so overlooked that they decide, no, we can't possibly go for promotions. That would be wrong. Yeah. I never, it's funny, in all the years of watching that show, I never really put two and two together that he was never promoted. But then they were stranded, right? How could you have promotions in a situation where you're stranded?
What did you have, Jaime?
Oh, for Best Pew Pew Pew, I had the Anaximander versus the Reality Ship, where they did some interesting stuff, like changing gravity to get heavier so that the warp engines wouldn't be messed up for that micro jump.
Right. And she says, push the button.
And Anaximander himself, I had to look this up. I did not know, but the nice people at Wikipedia let me know that he was a Greek philosopher. So that's the name of the ship, the Defiant class ship, who believed in science, or whatever it was considered back then. Particular interest in the origins of the universe, that it's supposedly ruled by laws, just like human societies, and if it gets out of balance, it does not last that long, right? Anything that disturbs the balance. And he introduced the abstract apeiron, apeiron, however that's pronounced, which is a potential origin of the universe that is indefinite, infinite, boundless, unlimited, which would make a lot of sense thematically with the multiverse topic here. So it was an interesting, somebody had this in their liberal arts degree, because you didn't just pull this person out of nowhere. This wasn't, Plato or Aristotle or one of the greatest hits. This was somebody knew deep and wrote a thesis on this.
Yeah, that was somebody with a degree nerding out for sure.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah, and the name of the ship was the Beagle, which is, I think that's, wasn't that, I thought it was named after Archer's dog, but wasn't the Beagle also Darwin's ship?
Yes.
In real life?
Yep.
IRL?
Yep.
I decided to throw... Oh, sorry, go for it.
Oh, no, go ahead.
In an episode just absolutely filled with Easter eggs, I chose a non-traditional one here, and that is the romance between Garak and Bashir, which...
Oh, I have that as my big question, so please.
Oh, please. Yes, continue. I just marked it as an Easter egg hunt item. What did you have as the question there?
My big question for this episode was, in retrospect, would DS9 have been better if they'd leaned into the Garak and Bashir homoerotic romance?
Yeah, and interracial kiss, too.
Interspecies
kiss. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
That's an interesting one. I think if it was modern, in the modern era, they would certainly do that now. It would have probably pushed things a bit too far back in the 90s when it did that. I think it was still a big deal when Jadzia kissed a woman at some point. I can't remember.
Yeah, she did, and it was. You were right.
Right? That would have been, probably got a whole bunch of complaints to the FCC, and a very special Star Trek episode kind of
didn't show that episode.
Yeah. So really. I think you're right. And for folks who are wondering, what the heck are we talking about? There's always been sort of the fan sort of ideas around was there kind of more than just the bromance and really close friendship going on? And I believe the actor for Elam Garak said that he portrayed, even though it was never on the page, he portrayed it as if there was romantic interest there. That's how he brought that energy to the acting of that role.
Yeah, I mean, I always picked it up that I think Andrew Robinson was playing it up for sure, but I also think that he was definitely playing it as he was interested in Bashir, and Bashir was always playing it as I'm not interested. But to have it sort of culminated as it is a thing was very funny and satisfying.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I always thought in that show that Bashir was always after Jadzia.
He was. Yeah. Yep.
And there were tons of Easter eggs, but most of the characters were Easter eggs, right? So
yeah, and half the dialogue that they were saying was Easter eggs too.
Yeah, 100%.
Okay, quotes. This was Tim. You already nailed half the good quotes. All the Kim lines. Damn you, Two-Pip Kim. This Kim has 2 pips. I think
that's to Paul.
Yeah. I liked Tendi at the beginning of the episode when she was talking about William and says, people are always coming back to life. Shaq's exploded and he's doing great.
Yeah.
And I really liked when Curzon lines up against the Quopians. He says, "Calm down. Everybody's going to get their asses kicked."
Yeah. Scorpions, yeah.
Yeah. But, this was, yeah.
Oh, wait, does he dispatch the Scorpions? I thought that was Garrick.
No, well, he does the ones in the cell, but when they get to the ship, they have to get back aboard the ship. That's when Curzon whips out the Batleth and starts beating them down, and apparently suffers a severe wound, and this was fun. Like, again, it's a little weird to have an episode that kind of doesn't focus on the core 4 or core 5 if you're a hardcore watcher, but I guess this is all sort of build up for the second half, which is going to focus on the core 4 and how their friendship can overcome the destruction of their universe.
And that said, they always do have, like, in one of the tropes in Star Wars or Star Trek that we always talk about, but one of the tropes that they used here was the multiverse, right? There's always the alternate, the evil original series.
Yeah. But I like that they're doing other than that too. Like, that was kind of the go-to, even right up until like Voyager, through the whole history of Star Trek.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So, like, and into Discovery, there's always been this, like, well, they're from the mirror universe. I like the idea that Star Trek's not limited to a mirror, that there's, in fact, actually a lot of different
possible... it's a disco ball universe. Yeah, exactly.
That's right.
Or a bubble bath
bubbles
universe.
In a bathtub. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But, yeah, no, I think this was a good setup. Did you guys have any other big questions? How you feeling about this sort of coming in for a landing?
Well, do you think Boimler's going to freak out when he finds out?
I mean, he did. There was a lot of screaming.
But it was off camera.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, because at the end she says, as long as he doesn't freak out, then the next scene you see, he's freaking out!
We're all gonna die!
I had my question, is just like, how is this all going to end, and how close are we, considering my early speculation that it was going to be a, like, All Good Things-esque kind of Mariner involved? It wasn't, but it was, like, very close when I saw her involved in this episode and how she was involved.
Yeah,
so I felt almost vindicated, but it didn't quite hit.
Oh, you mean that it would be like we would flash 10 years into the future or something? Or?
Yeah, that they would pull an All Good Things ending from TNG where there's, like, past, present, and future Mariner. They talked about...
Well, they kind of did that with in the same sense that they ended Picard, where, they brought the whole Next Generation crew back, minus one or two people, right? There was no, what's his name? Barclay. But, this was sort of that equivalent, because they brought back the references to Enterprise and Deep Space Nine, with all these characters coming over, right?
Yep.
They even mentioned Archer as, being a big Starfleet nerd.
Yeah.
At some point, right? So, and the fact that T'Pol drops, I was married to a human, meaning Trip, for 10 years or 20 years or something like that, right?
Yeah, that's is a happier ending than we got from the show.
Yeah, that's true. Well, it got canceled, didn't it? Right?
And what happened to Trip in the final episode too.
Now, a word from our sponsor. Now, back to the show.
All right. Well, you want to move on to Skeleton Crew?
Sure. We'll start with Jaime's recap of the first two episodes, right?
Yeah.
Well,
take it away, Jaime. We'll go have a drink while you're talking.
As people may have heard me say, I said, it's always kind of suspicious when you drop more than one episode. Again, unless you're Netflix, which means you're dropping all episodes at once. I feel like it's kind of iffy when you drop multiple episodes on day one. Kind of feels like you're not getting to the point fast enough and you're worried. I sort of felt a little bit of that, but not really that bad, to be honest. Because these are short episodes, like half an hour-ish episodes. So really, if they had smushed them together into 1 hour, I'm like, yeah, they delivered about an intro episode's worth of stuff, right? Because you end up with I know Jonathan has this one. I'm going to call Jude Law's character Jude Naboo because it's very close. It's very close to just taking a Star Wars name and bolting it to the end of his name. The kids and everything are all set up. Like, it feels so much like Goonies, which for me, who grew up with the Goonies, like it felt great. I enjoyed how these one do feel like kids. Like, they're not tiny little adults. They're like doing kid things. I appreciated how we get to see actual danger. So one thing that modern kids media tends to do is avoid any actual like real danger for the kids. Whereas the Goonies was like, hey, guess what? The Fratellis, they're going to like murder all these children, and they threaten to mangle Chunk's hand. Like they get him to turn on his friends and start screaming and talking about everything by like putting his hand and threatening to put it in the blender, right? Like, there's actual danger here for these kids, like especially in the pirate station that they were on.
Yeah, although it's funny, in the second episode, it felt like the spaceport Borgo was a scary, dangerous place. In the second episode, it felt like a Three Stooges routine, like vomit and people bunking into each other, and it just didn't feel as scary the second time around. I don't know if that was just because they wanted to lessen that tension, but it didn't feel quite as scary the second time. People vomiting all over themselves, and yeah. I mean, in the
third episode, like
yeah, when they get thrown in the brig.
The second episode of the planet,
yeah. So like in the second episode of the show, they go and it's like, they sort of, everybody's out to get them, and there is that tension. And then the third episode, when they get out of the brig, it feels like it turns into like a farce, right?
Yeah,
where they like the sort of slapstickiness of the really strong fuel line that won't break, and all the ships banging into each other, and getting the domino effect, knocking the bikers bikes over in front of the restaurant as you're trying to escape. That's kind of what they're doing, right? Yeah, it had that vibe for sure. Do you have elevator pitches? Were you doing elevator pitches with this one?
I couldn't stick the landing, so I went with Crimson Jack Sparrow as the closest I could get to something, because it's got a very piratey feel to it. There's a lot of Pirates of the Caribbean feel to this as well for episode 3.
Yep. I had it's always better to trust your gut than trusting a shady stranger you meet in a pirate jail. Like, I know what they're going for. I know the vibe they're going for the show, but like, to have, I don't know, what do we call it? We have to agree what we're going to call this guy. Is he Joda Wood, or is he Jodna Wood, or is he Silvo, or is he Silverwood? Jude Law.
Yeah. Yes, Jude Law is what we should go with.
Is very, very sketchy, and like the one character's like, oh yeah, like, you're a sketchy character and I don't trust you. And the other one is like, oh no, he's cool. We should totally do what he says. And it's just like, I don't know. It's kind of painful to watch, where you're like, nobody's that naive, right? Like, not even children are that naive that they're like, well, we did find you in a jail, so you're probably fine.
Yeah, that's true. But I mean, it's interesting from that interview I saw of him, sort of the way he's playing the role. He said that, it's like he doesn't understand that they're children.
Well, that seems pretty evident when he's sitting there scarfing down food and they're all like, staring at him with their stomachs gurgling.
Yeah, and he's like, there's more in the pot. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought he was going to finish the whole thing and then just watch them starve, but then...
That would be probably not... I mean, I guess we're supposed to figure... So, if we're following formula, he doesn't care about the kids... And he's out for himself, and then eventually he comes to like the kids, and later on he self-sacrifices to help the kids.
Right.
Like, that's the arc, right? That's the arc that we expect. Do you think that they will subvert that, or do you think they're going to nail that one right on the head?
Oh, I think definitely he'll get that redemption point where he, as a scoundrel, he'll do the right thing, right?
Yeah. You agree, Jaime?
Yeah, I had my big question be like, what's going on with Jude Law? Like, I don't think he's actually a Jedi. I'm wondering if he is actually force sensitive, although they do say like, well, maybe he's using like, repulsor lifts and magnets and other things to do tricks. I did kind of wonder, is he like a leftover Inquisitor or somebody who fled Order 66 while rather young, was trying to do math on where this takes place to figure that out. So I do believe that there is a redemption of some sort arc, because he's not totally bad. He's definitely gray area. He's not a good guy per se, but he's not bad per se either.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, this one, it seemed like they were portraying him as very much like his own in for himself, because he obviously is, trying to trick the kids, trying to, basically figure out how to get this one big score that'll either get him up like rich or get him back in good with the pirates, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's looking for the reward. He does say that a couple of times in the show, right? But he does realize that this is an opportunity for him to escape the pirate brig that he's in, right?
Yep.
And he can use these kids to sort of get ahead, and of course he's going to take him home because he's expecting a reward. He does say that in the show, so that could be it. And then again, also trying to find this mythical. We find hidden planet when he goes and talks to the archivist character at the end there, who is delaying while the X-wings come and take him away, right?
Was it just me, or were you totally waiting for Apu from?
I was, yes. When the X-wings were there, I was waiting for him to go. Oh, I just missed him. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But of course, they escape at the last second kind of thing too, right? And we go into episode 4, but
did you guys have that, or the escape as your pew pew pew?
Oh, you mean like what's my pew 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 in this one?
Yeah, because the two big scenes were the escape from the X-wings and the escape from Port Borgo, right?
Yeah, I think when they have the two kids take the gunner slots, right? That's typical Han Solo and Luke Skywalker against the TIE fighters, right?
Yeah.
I can't remember. Was that at the end of the episode? I can't remember.
Yeah, that was when they were trying to get away from the X-wings, because they're shooting at the X-wings, which that part was a little bit confounding, because I'm like, okay, so these kids are still are part of the Republic, right? Like, have they never seen an X-wing? Do they not know what they're shooting at?
Well, no, they don't, because I mean they've been living in this bubble, right? The planet they're in is hidden, and they don't know that there's even stars, right? They've seen them in books, but
fair enough. But I guess we're supposed to assume that whatever kinds of vehicles they have on their planet do not resemble X-wings. They've never seen an X-wing.
I don't know. I guess not. It does seem kind of Shangri-La like, right?
The whole it's separated and viewed as mythical by people who are outside, and Kim says, Alderaan missed the war, did you? So the kids didn't even know that Alderaan had gotten exploded.
Yep.
Yeah, good show. I'm enjoying it. I don't know about you guys, but
I mean, it's got a vibe, and I like that. It definitely is as I think, as we talked about last week, coming off of Acolyte, which was downer and a half. This definitely is a bit of a tonic to that. But it also, it had a feeling after the first 2 episodes, and it was definitely felt the same way after the third one. Like, it's almost, I don't want to come down too hard on it, but it's almost cynical. It's almost cynically doing what it's doing. Like, it's hitting all these notes that are so familiar, especially for people who are fans of that sort of, I think we talked about the sort of Steven Spielberg kind of vibe that this has, the sort of the E.T., the Goonies kind of, feel to it.
It is greasy kid stuff is what you're looking for, yeah.
Yeah, it's just, it does seem just a scotch cynical that they are really just kind of playing the hits. Like, they're doing it well, but I really hope, like, honestly, my greatest hope is that Silvo, doesn't have a good, breaking good, and it turns out to be a bugger, and they have to, deal with him differently. Like, I don't want it to be, oh, we met this guy, he was untrustworthy. And then we convinced him that he liked us, and blah, blah. Like, I don't know. If it follows the formula, I'll be bummed out. no matter how good they follow the formula, no matter how well they follow the formula, I'm still going to be bummed out that it's not in any way a challenging interpretation of Star Wars. It's paint by numbers so far, and they're painting very pretty inside the lines, but they're painting right inside the lines.
Yeah, my big question is, who's enjoying this more? The those of us who've been around the Star Wars universe long enough, or are the kids enjoying this, right? And is that the target audience?
Yeah, and that may well be the case. I mean, as we said, it's quite a tonic after.
It's like Prodigy, right? It's like Prodigy Starter Trek, and it has its. I mean, I'm not killing myself to find out what happened in season 2, even though people have asked me several times if I watched it yet. Right? No, I haven't been able to. But
still isn't free here in Canada.
Well, I mean, but the thing is, like, I'm not going out of my way to watch it. I mean,
yeah,
you know.
Yeah. How about you, Jaime? What do you think?
I'm liking the show. It's going down pretty smooth and easy. They don't always. Sometimes it's been a little rough for these Disney Plus Star Wars shows.
Yeah, I mean it's not Andor, but then again, you're right. Totally different audience.
Yeah, that was kind of the take I had. I was pretty skeptical of it when it was announced. I was like, I don't know. It seems like a little too kiddie. The art design in the very quick teaser or something we saw, I was like, oh, it's kind of weird seeing a planet like that. But I'm like, oh, totally makes sense. It's a utopian type planet, or so we think. The other question I had is like, are there any human leaders? It feels like the robots run everything.
Yeah. Well, and there's the parents sitting around as the teachers are telling them what's going on at the beginning of the episode too. That was kind of a weird.
Yeah.
Typical scenario. Well, okay, we'll tell you what's going on, kind of thing, right? So.
Yeah. There was some good Easter eggs in this one too. The scene where Silva goes back in, or Jude Law goes back in to try and find SM-33, and is walking past all the droids. We of course get like a classic battle droid. Did we win? That was pretty funny. Mm-hmm. And the first droid that he turns on was on the Sandcrawler in the original Star Wars Episode 4. So that was kind of fun to get a couple of those. But the deepest cut is for like OG Star Wars nerds like me, because the alias that they gave Jude Law's character when he goes and meets Kim, the owl creature, in the end of the episode, she calls him Captain Jack. Or Crimson Jack, not to be confused with Captain Jack, that's a different character. Crimson Jack was actually a character in the Star Wars comic books from 1977. So I think it was, I looked it up, it was like issue 7 or issue 8, so like really early in the run. There is a character who is like a notorious pirate captain named Crimson Jack. Not the same character, obviously, but choosing that particular name had to be a little nod to the long time. Really terrible. The first 30 to 40 issues of the original Star Wars series are pretty awful. They are like sort of nonsensical Star Wars stories made up that have no basis in what was actually happening in the Star Wars. Like nothing has ever come back around. Like they were really, really like, they just kind of gave the characters to a bunch of Marvel writers and let them just kind of do whatever. And so they just made a bunch of crazy stories, created all kinds of characters. One of them is a giant green rabbit man. They're really bad. But there are these moments that apparently stick in people's minds, and they really want to honor that legacy. So yeah, Crimson Jack.
Cool. I'm trying to find the showrunner director guy who started this show.
John Watts.
And what's his?
He was the creator and writer and director of the most recent Spider-Man trilogy.
Right. Okay. Right.
And
he's been working with children or kids or young people for a while, right?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, he worked with Tom Holland and Zendaya and all that on those ones. Yep. Yeah, and again, I think he's a good writer. I think he's a good director. I think if this is what he's been asked to deliver, then he's delivering exactly what he was asked to deliver. Like I said, a little tempered in my enjoyment. I am enjoying it, but I'm also nothing so far has been other than it has been expected. I think that it's pretty formulaic. Quotes. Fern says the classic Star Wars line, "That was too easy."
I put that as kind of an Easter egg hunt too, because it did feel like it started in like Leia's. I think hey, we got away too easy from that. They're tracking us.
Yep.
Yeah.
I like Silvo / Crimson Jack / Pada Nawano Joda Nawud. It's a very well made fuel line when they can't escape from the Port Borgo.
Right.
And the line that he delivers in the end, not everything in the galaxy can be calculated. Sometimes you just have to trust your gut. That's actually a pretty sage thing. I like that. It's good writing. I like that one. Okay, so my big question, do you guys have any other quotes, or we're going to jump into the questions?
I think Jude Law had "That's not a Jedi thing, the Jedi say."
Yeah, that's right. That's not a Jedi thing. Yeah. Okay. What is AT-AT in your opinion? What's the big MacGuffin of this? What are they? What are they? Because the kids started trying to put it a little bit together, like, oh, they're an analyst. My dad's an analyst. My dad's an analyst. What, like, my thought is
data scientists.
Well, yeah, like, oh, they're actually building their own Death Star. I don't know. I think this is the Republic Bank. I think they have all the money. I think that way you can tie the sort of two parts of it together. Like,
oh yeah, and that's why everybody's trying to find them, and that's why it's hidden.
Yeah, I think this is where
it's the Treasure Island.
Yeah,
in other words.
Yeah, because it's pirates. So the treasure. I think maybe there's some truth to all that, and that this is actually where the Republic keeps its currency
stores. Yeah.
Because I don't know what else would make sense in a sort of.
Well, that's true. Well, he's throwing around lunch money, and lunch money is like, pirates are tripping over himself to get his lunch money.
Well,
right?
that's it. If his dad is giving him that, which is equivalent to a fortune on the outside world as lunch money, then they must be a lot of it. Any other hypotheses?
No, but were there a lot of credits in the regular Star Wars universe? Like,
I mean, Han Solo flips one to the bartender after blowing a hole through Greedo, but
true, yeah, that's what I mean. Like, I mean, the concept of credits, because there's no cash in Star Wars, right, or Star Trek, right?
No, they're currency free in this. I mean, except for the Gold Press Platinum and stuff like that. But in Star Wars, I mean, I guess the only other thing we see is Han Solo is like literally loading up trays full of credits after dropping off Princess Leia, rescuing for the Death Star. He's like, I gotta go pay off Jabba the Hutt. This is gonna help, and he's loading like stacks of cash into the Millennium Falcon.
Yeah, but there's none of that. Give me some information, and here I'll flip you a credit kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think, and more so in the sort of expanded, extra, larger universe than the sort of the main movies and stuff. Yeah. All right, 2 down, 2 to go.
Harmonium.
Yes.
Silo, season 2, episode 4, the Harmonium.
Mm-hmm. Or how crazy is Solo?
Well, or how crazy is our hero, because she has to go underwater
and trusts him.
Well, and gets stuck and has to escape without the. Suddenly learns how to swim to the surface, right?
Yeah, she's turned into a pretty good swimmer for somebody who didn't know how to swim and was utterly terrified of it during the first season.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, you do what you got to do, I guess, right?
Yep.
Well, by the same token, her boyfriend wasn't afraid of it once he realized that he needed to get down to the water to get out, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So. There are differences between the books, so I want to be mindful of the fact that I've read the book and you guys haven't had a chance to read it yet. Mm-hmm. So I don't want to spoil anything about what has happened or is happening. I will say that there are differences between the story in the book and the story on the screen.
Of course,
mostly for the better.
Oh yeah.
But what did you think of the sort of story arc between the judge and Bernard in this episode, the sort of twists and turns that took?
Yeah, he seems to do that a lot. He solves the problems by making other people look like scapegoats, right?
Well, and he's supposed to be a zealot, right? Like, the idea is that he is in his position because he is fanatically aligned with what he's been told to be aligned with. And I felt like the decision to have him not only do what he does with the judge, but then have the frame that comes out of that, which ties back to, again, what was in the order, I think is really good at crystallizing that he's not necessarily evil, although he does evil things. He's not necessarily bad, but he does bad things. But he's a, ends justify the means kind of, or means justify the ends kind of, person. He is fine with the idea of whatever it takes to get the results that we need.
Mm-hmm.
When you think about that character, do you think that he's like, is he a monster? Is he, he almost comes off a little bit empathetic at times, and then, and then he'll do something and you're like, oh no, that's right, he's a monster.
He's definitely the bad guy. He seems to, he plays the good guy, or the guy who seems to be doing the best for the people. I was actually surprised that he does do what he does to the judge, right?
Yeah.
And sets her up to be the bad person, like in the eyes of the people, right?
Yeah.
The people, of course, are being manipulated by the people in power, which seems to be pretty common these days, right?
So, yeah. Well, and it's interesting that not only are they getting played by Bernard, but they're also getting played by Rob too, the common character who is, also, has his own tactics to try and put pressure on, getting what he wants.
Yeah.
But it's interesting because, obviously the first season was so focused on the Juliet character and the big mystery. This one, obviously, sort of telling simultaneous stories. It's what's happening in Silo 17 with her and Solo. It's what's happening inside of Silo 18 with, all this sort of political intrigue and revolution and, it's an interesting story that's sort of splintered in these interesting ways. I will say I'm a little disappointed with the way they're using the character. I can't recall his name off the top of my head. The fellow who was documenting the stars. With
the 5-year sentence.
Where she tells him all these things. Oh, those are called stars, and he's just like, this is amazing. And she's like, have a nice time in the mines. Like, it's kind of an interesting, but I thought he was a sort of more interesting character in the first season. This season, he just stands there looking stunned a lot of the time. Like, what do you mean I have to go to the mines?
Yeah, and Bernard asks her about why she put him through that, right? So
yeah, and I mean he again comes back to the same thing where she says very cynically, the judge says very cynically, like, what does it matter if he does 10 years or 5 years? He'll be dead in one. Like, oof. Dark.
Well, she won't be there to see it.
Yeah, fair enough.
Spoilers.
Fair enough. Yeah. I mean, we're coming up, strangely already coming up towards the halfway mark of the season. And do you find you're as engaged through sort of the first 4 as you were sort of in the big mystery, murder mystery stuff they had going on in the first season?
With Silo, it was kind of, the first season was kind of, I don't know it is like one of the first shows I watched this season for sure. Mm-hmm. Like as soon as it comes on, like I think I watch it it comes out on Friday, right? So yeah, I probably watch it like at midnight if it's on, but but I don't know if I was I was engaged in it with last year when I was watching it by myself, but I don't know if I went out of my way to sort of dive into it, right? So, because it does have sort of strange politicking, people being manipulated, that kind of stuff, which, I'm not a huge fan of, right? But, like the sort of the class, the people who have privilege and the people who don't, and, the common character being the secret police kind of guy, right? So,
yeah.
Who seems like he has some redeemable qualities too, which is kind of strange, right? But, because he's got a wife and kid at home too, right?
Yeah, I mean, he was always, I think, a little bit of the more reluctant. Like it's funny because they joke about him being like somebody who was so good at, like, he knew the order inside and out, and won these contests for knowledge and stuff like that. But you see him really wavering, and especially in this last episode when he's starting to put together like who started the conflict down in mechanical, and he's actually being sort of suspicious of what he's seeing.
Yeah. Because these. That's what I'm saying. Like the division is actually being people are being played, right? Like
the people who are against engineering are being played, and the people in engineering are being played, and it all comes back to Bernard and the order and things like that, right? Because the order tells him it's okay to be this complete jerk, right? Because it's the order says no matter what, keep the order, right? Sort of thing.
Yeah, follow the order.
Yeah, if somebody doesn't clean, then you gotta do all this stuff, because if they don't clean, then people start asking questions, right? So it's deflecting people's inquisitiveness, I think, is what the show is about. That's the political side of it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. The interesting part about that is that it correctly recognizes that the real power should hypothetically be the people who can kill everyone else. Right? If mechanical stops the engines from running, everything falls apart. So you have to disenfranchise them by convincing everybody else to turn against the one set of people who are at the literal bottom of the society, who can hurt even the mightiest elites at the very top. It all makes sense. It's very cynical. It's very Machiavellian kind of thing. But I was sort of nodding my head of yeah, that's absolutely what you should do, right? If you're in that evil bureaucrat sort of mode. Yeah.
It does.
From having worked for evil bureaucrats, I can tell you that's what it's like.
Yeah, exactly. It's an unfortunately uncomfortable and yet familiar tale. Yeah. No, I mean it's good. I honestly, my only sort of criticism of the show so far is just I think Rebecca Ferguson is a bright shining star, and anytime we're away from her, I think the show is a little less than. And
yeah, that's true.
But I get, I've read the book. I get what they're doing. I get that this is important. You need to tell the story from the two sides of what's happening inside the two groups. But I think that she's just so magnetic that when she's not on the screen, you're like, okay, can we get through some of this political stuff and
and get back to the problem solving?
Get back to the person who needs to solve these crazy problems and figure out how to build a suit and go back to her silo. Yeah.
And deal with goofballness, right?
Yeah, I mean, Steve Zahn, God bless, he's playing a great, lunatic. I mean, longtime fan. He's a great actor. But yeah, he's essentially a giant child, and so she has to sort of reconcile that, right? Yeah,
because he makes emotional decisions when she reminds him that you did do a logical thing a minute ago, and he does come back out of it, I bet.
Yeah.
Cool.
All right. Last but not least. Well, least.
Last and least. Dune Prophecy. Twice Born.
Okay. Before we get started, I would like to hear, Jaime, you're up to date on Dune Prophecy?
Yes.
I would like to hear your thoughts on episodes 3/4, because we I think agreed that 3 was probably the strongest episode so far. But I'd like to get your thoughts on what you thought of episode 3 and then into episode 4.
It's a weird thing where I've been telling my significant others we watched the show that I kind of wish this was a chronological order show, because I actually prefer young Valia and that whole thing that's going on more than I do the current present day stuff. And this one was, the most present day, maybe entirely present day from what I remember. So it does suffer from that, but of the present day stuff, it did seem like it had the most going on, right? It's only got 2 episodes left now after this episode's done. So it's definitely going to have to move pretty fast.
Yeah.
But they did move at least a lot in the present day. That's kind of the weird split I have. It feels like it needed to be House of the Dragon style of let's see them younger and then maybe do a time jump later if you're going to go this way.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think what worked well in the 3rd episode was we got the background and the context that made us care about the characters for the first time 3 episodes in. I just didn't feel that investment in the characters after the first 2 episodes. The 3rd episode made me oh, okay, so now I get that Valia is actually all along kind of had this split loyalty, but mostly loyal to her family versus the Order, and that Tula is loyal to her sister above all, even though that has its own complications. It definitely made me care more about the characters. And then they brought episode 4, and I was back to, well, good, you're moving the plot forward, but also I don't care what happens to most of these characters again. Like, we spent more time away from, like, we spent time with, like, the Atreides guy, and we spent time with, like, the princess, and it was just, I just don't care about these characters. They just don't do anything for me.
Right.
And the show has this, it's funny, it didn't occur to me in the movies, and I think that means it was done well, and it occurs to me when I'm watching this, which means that maybe it isn't. There's a sort of sameness to the aesthetic, the clothing, the appearances of these characters. Like, it's not that you forget who's who, it's that it doesn't matter. Like, they all just seem very interchangeable. And I think that speaks to not spending enough time developing characters. Like, they make a point of name dropping and having this, this prospective rebel be an Atreides, and yet I feel no interest, empathy, rooting for, like, nothing. Like, it just feels like...
Which one's the Atreides?
The one who's the younger of the rebels, who is about to, like, launch the attack and kill the royal family and start this revolution.
The one that gets the guard guy that gets away with it, or
the guy that was trying to put the drone inside of the vent.
Yeah, the one who basically opens the vent and is gonna
so the drone can come out. Yeah, okay, that guy.
Yeah.
So I have two big questions, but I can wait for them, or I can ask them now.
Go for it. Go for it. This one's open-ended.
The first big question for you guys is, if you didn't have a podcast on sci-fi, would you even watch this show beyond what you've seen so far? And would you watch season 2?
I would have watched the first 2 episodes when they came out, and then I would have said, cool, I'll catch up when they all drop. I wouldn't be watching it week to week. I don't think
you, Jaime? I
don't think it's good enough.
Yeah.
This would end up on my download and watch on an airplane kind of thing. Like, oh, okay, like, well, I'm eating my
when
sandwich.
You're like in a hospital bed and can't get away, right?
yeah, it's kind of like, oh, I'll get to it, but it's not like high priority. To your point, your specific question.
Now you know what it was like to watch a sequel in the 70s, right? Anyway,
are you comparing this to, like, the 3rd, 4th, and 5th Planet of the Apes movies? Like, where?
No. Well, those are good examples of bad. Of the second, never mind the third.
Yeah.
No, I mean, like anything with Death Wish in it, or
the Dirty Harrys,
all those. Well, the Dirty Harry, some of them were good, some of them were like, Dirty Harry was such a good movie, and then the rest were just like watching him walk around and shoot people, right?
Yeah, so I got a big gun here.
Yeah, I mean, you watched them because they were on, but yeah, no, there was an appetite, or like, what's his name? John Travolta does Saturday Night Fever, and the next thing they have him doing line dancing in the next movie. Like, no.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've ever seen that movie, but it's like, I'll save you a minute. Don't ever watch that one. I mean, Saturday Night Live is a period piece. I'll leave it at that.
Yeah.
But it's not required watching for anybody, but still, it had a moment in the 70s. But yeah, I mean, so how I would approach this show is, and I've done this several times, I'll watch a couple of episodes or watch an episode or two, and then I'll shelve it, right? And I won't go back to it. And I've got in my, if you look at my Apple TV, I have a whole bunch of shows queued up that I've watched, 2 or 3 episodes for, and I'm not in any hurry to go back to them. Like, his Dark Materials, we talked about that one, right?
Yep.
I think I'm sitting on episode like 4 or 5. I just haven't gotten back into the groove for it, and that's kind of how I feel about this show, right? Like the episode. My pitch for the episode this week would either be No Good Deed Goes Unpunished or The Best Laid Plans of Mice and Men. I mean, the thing about it is like, you knew going into it that they had this great plot about this drone, that some shoe was going to drop somewhere, right? So, and you probably saw it like way before I did, Jonathan, too, right? So,
well, it was destined to fail. It was just a matter of how.
Yeah, exactly. And it was, the failure was a bit predictable, and then there's like a little humanization at the end there, and some empathy from the Emperor, who at the end of the day, as the Emperor, should have no empathy whatsoever for anybody, right? you should be all about the spice and
if
they're true, because the spice doesn't even enter into this, right? Like other than them getting high occasionally, right?
Yeah, and I think that's one of the flaws in the show is that one of the biggest stars of the first book and the movie is Arrakis, and to only have sort of passing nods to Shai Hulud and bits and bobs of that, it feels like something's missing. So all we really are getting is this very sort of sterile, most of the times on this royal planet things are very sterile, very I don't know, just unengaging and unchallenging. Again, it's essentially a politics show, right?
Yeah, my second big question, and notwithstanding we did get a little bit of a reveal in this particular episode, but it's 10,000 years in the past. Are there still only 3 important families in the Dune verse?
Yeah.
Right? It's almost like, I mean, what in Game of Thrones there was 5 big family, or 5 big, and they were all based on the houses that the literal buildings that they lived in, right? But here you got not the Lannisters. You got the Atreides and the Harkonnens, and again, it's 10,000 years ago, right? I mean, the House of Windsor, who is the current, sits on the throne in England today, went through 7 different families before it got to where we are today, right? Sort of thing. If you go from Henry VIII down to Charles, there's and that's not 10,000 years. There's the lineage flip-flopped several times, right? And went back and reset itself and whatever, right? But I just again, it's like in a universe where there's only one family and its last name is Skywalker, just it's a bit hard to take. But I guess I don't know if you're a fan of the Herbert books, maybe. And I don't know. I mean, this is the thing. This isn't based on a Herbert or Frank Herbert book. This is based on a book that was written by his son and another author, right? And
Kevin Anderson. Yeah.
So it was how do people who are huge fans of Dune and Frank Herbert's writing, and because there were several books that he wrote, right, in this space about spice and all that stuff, right? Yeah, I wonder how they hey, if you're out there and you're listening, let us know somehow. Now that we don't have Ask Spotcast anymore. Well, I guess we do on Blue Sky, but yeah, those are my 2 big questions.
Yeah, I don't love it, and I'm gonna stick it. I've made it through 2/3 already. I may as well stick in for the last 2, but it's just 6 episodes is a challenging number, and if you're gonna do that, then you need to hook people really fast and make them care about everything else you're trying to do, and they didn't, and here we are.
Yeah. Cool. Well, let's move on to the watch list, if we can.
Watch list.
So, my first one is a show called Secret Level, which you guys would probably be more keen on than I am. I'm keen on it because I love the 2 seasons of Love, Death, and Robots, right? Which are anthology series. And this is another anthology, which is already out on Prime. I don't know if it's all dropped at once, but possibly. But this is they're little anthologies picking up on popular games and doing this sort of secret level. I guess a little bit like What If, right? I don't know if you guys caught the trailer. Did any of the people? I mean, it looks like it blows up real good, is why I'm going to watch it. But and did you guys get a chance to watch this trailer or see anything about it?
No, I didn't do it yet.
No, Jaime? No?
No, I wasn't really familiar with this. That's what I was completely lost. How did you end up finding this? Like it's not a bad thing. It was just like, oh, this is coming out soon, right? It's already out.
It's out already. Yeah, it just came out. So, well, I stumbled across it in I was just looking around for previews and stuff like that, and I just stumbled across it and sat and watched it and went, okay, this is interesting. They dropped some of the names of the games that it's based on, but it means nothing to me, right? So that's why I asked if you guys. But it looks like I said, Love, Death, and Robots have done a couple of good seasons, I think, on Netflix. So I enjoyed those shows, and I'm gonna hopefully, if it has the same production quality, I'll enjoy these ones too. My second trailer here is whatever happened to Jack Quaid after, Boimler, and I guess he's going to do one more season of The Boys, but this is a new action movie coming out called Novocaine, where he plays this bumbling kid that people know from school and who doesn't feel pain. So in the trailer, he's doing things like, having, being tortured and going, ow, ow, oh, that's so painful. And being able to, get caught in booby traps and stuff like that and not feel the effects that you're meant to feel as he's trying to rescue Amber Midthunder, who's the girl he discovers at the beginning of the trailer, right? So it looks like it might be fun to watch, and kind of like Nobody, like that show. If you guys watched the movie Nobody, very similar kind of thing, like with
Bob Odenkirk, right? The Nobody.
Yeah. So this looks interesting, and it's coming out in 2025. And there you go, Novocaine.
This is like you're not Wolverine or something. Is the quote in the trailer?
Yeah.
Like his buddy is the actor from the Tom Holland Spider-Mans. The young Asian kid, I guess he is.
Yeah,
that plays
Filipino,
his best friend.
Yep.
Yeah, Filipino.
Yep.
Yeah, he's in it as his best friend, going, "You're not a superhero," and because he's running around and doing crazy things. Like he at one point he drops a gun in a deep fryer, and he reaches into the deep fryer and fries his hand as he's getting the gun out and foiling the antagonist, right? And yet he's singed his hand and doesn't even realize it. Yeah, so it's that kind of like, oh my god, like the replicants in Blade Runner reaching in and pulling out the eggs out of the boiling water. Anyhow, over to you, Jonathan, for your picks. Yeah. I know this first one's going to be so good.
Well, Tim got the sneak preview where we just chatted the other day, but so here in Canada, the good folks at Crave have added the one of the larger films from this year, Beetlejuice has dropped on there. So I sat down with my lovely wife and watched it the other night, and it was awful. It was really quite poor. I had seen the trailers. I'm a big fan of the original Beetlejuice. I was excited to sit down and watch it. Both of us were. Both of us are big fans. And it was not good. The plot was kind of all over the place. The jokes didn't land. It's got a good cast, but they aren't used very effectively. It's just lacking. It's not funny overtly. It's not clever. It doesn't have heart. What was really missing from the first movie is they didn't bring back Alec Baldwin and Geena Davis as the sort of recently deceased couple. And what really stands out in the first movie is the bond that they form with Winona Ryder's character. In this one, there's kind of no comp to that. There's this relationship between these three women. It's just not good. It's just not good. I was really disappointed and was really surprised that with that much talent, and especially because they've had 35 years to come up with something that should have landed. It's just not what I was hoping it to be. It's fun to see Michael Keaton back in the costume. The fact that he's older makes no difference because he's wearing so much makeup. It never occurs to you that he's at a different point or anything like that. They did do a good job of using him strategically, that he's not just like in every scene, because that would be too much. But overall, it's not clever enough to be enjoyable on that front. It's not funny enough to be enjoyable on that front. It's not creative enough to be fun on that front. And there's no heart to it. So it just feels like a soulless Hollywood cash grab.
Right.
Like it just felt.
Are Geena Davis and Alec Baldwin in it at all?
No, they're not. Yeah, it feels like the most cynical side of the corporate sequelization trend that has just been absolutely running roughshod over television and movie theaters the last number of years in the very worst way. I'm you know, I was trying to see if I'm alone, and there are lots of positive reviews out there. Some people really like it, so your mileage may vary, but for me it just really was not good enough, and really a disappointing addition to the legacy.
Well, because the reason I asked about Baldwin and Gina Davis is that when I watched the movie, the first one, I saw them as the central characters, right? Even though the Winona Ryder and the Catherine O'Hara and obviously Michael Keaton are important, but they were kind of secondary to the story, right? So
yeah.
And in fact, I don't think Michael Keaton was actually in Beetlejuice all that much. I mean, he was in some key scenes, right? But
yeah, and like I said, I think that's the strength of it, is that when he comes on screen and he's magnetic and he's hilarious and he's engaging. If you just had him in every scene, it would be too much. And they do a good job in this one, but yes, it just doesn't. Yeah, it doesn't matter because
did it have a story that's worthwhile watching at all, or
not particularly. Not like, I mean, essentially the idea is that yeah, it's not good. And there, I have to look up this guy's name. I want to say his name is Justin Theroux.
Oh, Theroux, yeah, I know him. Yep.
I don't. What is he famous for? Like, where did this guy come from?
He was in Mosquito Coast, and he's friends with Will Arnett and Jason Bateman and those guys, right? But I know him from Mosquito Coast.
Okay. Yeah, I've seen him in a few things, and I don't find him particularly engaging or funny. And he's supposed to be sort of the comic reliefy character in this, and he is not great in my opinion. He's just not captivating enough to make me want to follow along and invest in his character. And they introduced Jenna Ortega as this sort of the daughter who's sort of filling the role of a young Winona Ryder, and she's playing a slightly more energized version of the character she plays in Wednesday. Like I feel like she's getting very close to being in danger of being typecast.
Yeah, this is a movie that I actually did watch on the plane.
There you go, great, because it was. Now I really want to hear. What do you think?
I also have very similar thoughts, and I'm like, there could be a good movie here if they didn't have like 5 movies in one.
Yeah.
So I don't understand why Monica Bellucci's character is even in the movie, because she could just be like a sandworm. Like,
yep.
She doesn't really have like an arc. She's barely
I know why.
You
want to know why, Jaime? Because she's dating from Burton.
Well, then, was that like a late addition? They were like, we need a thing. It's like, I got an idea, right? Hold my beer. We're gonna squeeze in some scenes here. You could have plots removed out, like I guess they needed a way to get to the underworld, the afterlife, the netherworld. So they needed to stitch a reason why Jenna Ortega's character ends up there. So they can rescue her. I'm like, okay, but then you don't really need the son and his family. If you're gonna write out the actor for the dad, Catherine O'Hara's husband, you don't need him to stick around. I felt like he kind of wore out his welcome. Yep. I'm like, oh, okay, this is how they're writing him off. This is how Charles Dietz is gone. I'm like, all right. I'm like, you barely threw a passing comment for Gina Davis and Alec Baldwin. Oh, there was a loophole. They found their way. I'm like, this dude just kept coming back. I'm like, why? This needed to be cutting room floor.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and it's weird too, because then they wrote the character out, and I was like, well, that makes sense, because the actor who played him had a pretty nasty scandal involving children, and so justifiably no longer part of the franchise. Great. But then they do this weird thing where they do bring him in, and instead of just being like, he died, they do the whole like claymation scene to reenact what happens with him, and then they have this like bumbling decapitated character walking around. It's just you're right. I think it's just there was it was like they put a bunch of ideas for what Beetlejuice Part 2 should be in a hat, and instead of picking one, they just poured out the hat and were like, we'll just do this.
Yeah. It's I think it's a simpler one if you reduce it down to, okay, Jenna Ortega gets in trouble. Her mom, Winona Ryder, Lydia Dietz, has to save her. She needs Beetlejuice's help, and Beetlejuice is only willing to do it if he'll get married, right? And you could have him be like, Monica Bellucci's character somehow involved. You could even just hint at that. How about that? And save it for another sequel.
Yeah,
right. You make a third one, Beetlejuice as a third one. I don't know if they thought they were going to do more than one and said, "Oh crap, no, they're not pulling for it. We got to shove it all together here and close the arc." Catherine O'Hara's character could continue to another movie. I could see a whole bunch of ways to tease this apart into something that's more comprehensible.
Yeah. And, there may well be a third part, because this was, in spite of our criticisms, it made $450 million at the box office. It cost $100 million to make, and they made $450. That's by any measure a success. It does have, overall, it's, let's see what the latest rating is here on Rotten Tomatoes. It's 76%. On Rotten Tomatoes, and a cinema score of a B plus. So, I think it's distinctly possible that they may do a third one. I mean, who knows?
So here's the interesting thing, right? So it's really difficult to make a sequel that long after the fact. If you look at the Terminator versus Terminator 2 Judgment Day, it feels like forever, but it's only 11 years, 1984 to 1991. There are 36 years, according to the Googles, between 1988's Beetlejuice and 2024's Beetlejuice. You're not going to like this, JPK, but Top Gun to Top Gun Maverick is also 36 years, 1986 to 2022. It is the best possible 3 decades plus later sequel example that you can find. If somebody's out there, you got a better one, I'd love to hear it. It's a very short list.
Yeah, there's our homework for next week's episode. What's the longest stretch between sequels, and was it worth the wait?
Exactly. It's not just sequels like, oh look, somebody made heck, you could even call Wicked arguably that, right? If you say, well, it's tied into Wizard of Oz.
We did have Return to Oz back in the 80s too. I mean, there have been other Oz movies over the years,
right? And
we did get wasn't there a prequel at some point with what was that called? Oz the Great and Powerful. Oz the Great and Powerful came out maybe 10 years ago.
From the books, yeah.
So
and also The Star is Born has been done 4 times, right?
Yeah, I mean, again, I was thinking about like the Hustler and Color of Money. Like, there's been ones that have been like long stretches between movies and their sequels. Yeah. But I got to be honest. If we're going to be deeply cynical about this, then I'm going to totally root for Howard the Duck Part 2. Come on, it's time.
Howard the Duck, yeah.
About time we had that Howard the Duck sequel.
It's a 1986 film, so it would break this record here that we've decided exists of longest or highest number of years between movies where it was actually worthwhile. So Top Gun Maverick at 36 years. Howard the Duck says 1986. So there you go.
Yeah,
it's totally plausible.
Yeah, well, in terms of like long stretches, I was at a show the other day, and Ron McLean was in the audience, and he said he'll retire when the Leafs win the cup.
Bad news, Ron. You'll be dead before that.
Well, that's the other good side of the Beetlejuice third episode. We may not be here to see it, so just Jaime will have to review it by himself.
Yeah, I may not be willing to watch it anyway, so it doesn't really matter. Not to mention the fact that Michael Keaton, again, good job on him. I'm glad he's still working, because I love Michael Keaton, longtime fan. He's 73 years old. Like, you can't wait for a lot longer if you're going to do more of these.
Well, Mick Jagger's still going.
True. And again, we're seeing lots of, people performing, actors, singers, politicians who are, older, who are still working, which is good, but oof, Anyway,
maybe he'll be like in a retirement home thinking that he's Beetlejuice. That'll be the conceit.
That would be awesome. Okay, quickly, the other thing I wanted to just touch on for the watch list was Creature Commandos. This is the first thing that is part of the James Gunn new DC cinematic expanded universe. I watched the first 2 episodes. It is very James Gunn. Lots of, slapsticky violence mixed with, rock soundtrack mixed with, quirky characters. I'm glad they did 2 episodes to start, because I definitely needed the 2 episodes to sort of fully engage with who I was dealing with here. It is a bit challenging in that these characters aren't sort of characters that are really familiar to people outside of mostly comic nerds, but I did enjoy it, and I will keep watching it, and I'm curious to see what else they do and what the ramifications are. It's got an absolutely stacked cast of voice talent, which makes me think that they're going to at some point take this and do something live actiony with it, because Frank Grillo is playing the leader of the Creature Commandos. He was the bad guy, one of the main bad guys in Winter Soldier. Zoe Chow, nominated for an Oscar for Everything Everywhere. Alan Tudyk, Sean Gunn, Steve Agee, David Harbour, Viola Davis, Indira Varma. This is a good cast. It's a really good cast. So I'll be curious to see if they are going to do something more with this. It's interesting to me that it does reference in the first episode the events of The Suicide Squad, the James Gunn previous DC iteration movie, which means that they're not necessarily decanonizing everything. So I'm curious to see how that plays out as we go forward into the relaunch of the DC Expanded Universe next year with, the new Superman movie and, sort of kicking those things off. But, it was a strong start. I liked it. Jaime, did you have a chance to watch it?
No, I think we had talked about this coming out, right? And it was kind of a nutty cast to have for this kind of show. I didn't realize it was out. It's Max, I would guess.
Yeah, it's Max in the United States, and here it's on Adult Swim, because for some reason they are mildly ghettoizing the animated properties that are coming from Max. They're selling them off to different parties, because Harley Quinn is like a season behind and on Netflix here. So I don't know why. I don't know why they're doing that.
Based on who buys it.
But they shouldn't be doing that. Either I get my HBO and Max content from Crave, or I don't. I shouldn't have to go get another service. Like, if I didn't still have cable, which I don't really want to have, but I do because I like basketball, I wouldn't be able to watch this, and that would really tick me off. If I'm spending the money to have a subscription to Crave and you are billing yourselves as Canada's home for HBO and Max content, then be that. Don't be part of that. That still irks me. I don't think Crave is a particularly good streaming service. As a matter of fact, I think it is the worst of all of our streaming services, and notably the most Canadian, in that it is just a dog's breakfast. And the fact that that is the only way that you can get HBO content here in Canada is awful, and the fact that they aren't even completely doing that is even worse. Stick that in your pipe and smoke it, Bell.
So, yeah. Over to you, Jaime, for your...
kind of unusual for me to choose another podcast. In this case, it is Decoder Ring's episode entitled Reconsidering One of the quote-unquote worst TV shows of all time. It covers a variety show on NBC from the year 1980 that I'd never heard of, called Pink Lady and Jeff. Jeff is Jeff Altman, the comedian. I don't think he really had great success, but he was definitely a dude I recognized. I had no idea who Pink Lady was, but apparently they were pretty big in Japan as a pop group back at this era. And so the crux of this is, what if you had a variety show, which you have, variety shows, a lot of different comedy sketches and music and stuff, and he said, we're going to take these pop stars from Japan, and we're going to bring them to the United States to speak in English. And nobody double checked, do they know how to speak English before deciding to do this? It's like the dumbest possible idea for a show. And without getting too spoilery, they do realize they don't speak English, and so they had to train the girls to phonetically remember the entire script. So they are speaking quote unquote English, but do not understand it. This is the same way that I sing along with, like, you know, Japanese anime songs. Like, I don't necessarily understand what I'm saying. I could just repeat the sounds. Yep. Like, it is just bonkers to do that. And I thought this was kind of a fascinating episode to listen to. So there's my pick.
That's pretty fun.
There's a picture of Roy Orbison on their show.
Yeah, that was one of the things they did try to, like, pull in. You know, this was, you know, the era where the 70s had a lot of variety shows. Clearly, Donnie Murray Osmond were, like, the thing that everybody else wanted to be, of, like, we need to have that too. And this was one huge swing and a miss that I'd never heard of. So didn't want that to be lost to the sands of time kind of thing.
Interesting. All right. Well, we're wrapping it up this time. So once again, Jonathan, if people want to get in touch with you, where would they find you?
You can find me on Instagram as @JPK News, or you can find me on YouTube at youtube.com/JPK.
All right. And Jaime, if people want to get in touch with you, where would they find you?
I'm on Twitter as @Dev with the Hair.
All right. My name is Timitra, TIMMITRA, on Blue Sky, Instagram, Mastodon, and that's about all I can remember. So until next time, we'll see you in the future. Bye.
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 You've been listening to the Spotcast podcast. If you want to find out more about the podcast or see the episode show notes, visit the Spotcast website at spotcast.com. If you have feedback or questions, you can get in touch with us on the website. If you like the show, please consider recommending us to a friend, writing a review on iTunes, or pledging any amount at patreon.com/spotcast. You can find details on how to help us on our website, spotcast.com/sponsor us. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you in the future.
So I have a topic for the after show this time.
All right.
I just read this just before we started recording here. It was a reviewer who wrote a piece back when Interstellar first came out 10 years ago. He didn't think it was that great, and then he went back and then he watched it over and over again on the various streaming systems, and he just went back and watched it again, and it's one of the few reviews that he regrets. And the name of this one is Interstellar a masterpiece or not? And the reason why I bring it up is Jonathan and I just went and watched a print on 70mm IMAX, which was sold out for many, many showings here in our neighborhood. And think like Oppenheimer, there's only a few places that actually have 70mm IMAX, right? Interesting that, and I heard in last weekend's box office, it came in 5th place. So what do you think, Jonathan? I said to you after we were finished watching, you said it's a great movie. So what's your sort of position on this movie versus, Christopher Nolan's catalog and or other movies, and or is this a masterpiece?
Okay. I'll start with the first and most fundamental question. Is it a masterpiece? Yes, I think it is. I think it is arguably his best realized movie, although you could make a case for Oppenheimer. I think he has a lot of interesting ideas that don't always land. See Tenet, see everything like Batman Begins, Dark Knight Rises, lots of things. I feel like after watching Interstellar again, and I had seen it multiple times before, never seen it in a theater before, and obviously never at the scope of a 70mm print, an IMAX print. I think the criticism of Nolan, which is probably a fair one, is that he has lots of great ideas and then tries to shoehorn characters into them, and that he doesn't necessarily have a great ear for dialogue or what human beings talk and or sound like.
Right.
But in this one, it's about the Matthew McConaughey character Coop and all the sacrifices he's making to try and find a way to keep hope alive for his children.
Right.
And they really do a good job in this one, and it's exactly what we're talking about Dune back in the show. They do a good job initially of grounding him with he loves his kids. He, sacrificed a lot to stay with them and be with them. He lost his wife. His kids matter so much to him. So that when it all starts hitting the fan, you care. And then the decisions he makes throughout the movie are consistent with those values. And it roots what is occasionally a complicated sci-fi story in humanity, in a person, in a character that you can invest in. I like Matthew McConaughey. I'm not a huge Matthew McConaughey fan. I enjoy his work, but I don't seek it out. I think this is one of his better performances that I've seen. And I think it makes for a much more enjoyable experience and therefore a better movie because he's a well-realized character that you invest in. And so when he's going on this crazy sci-fi ride, you are really invested on all the ups and downs and what's happening. And then doubling down on that is both the young actress who plays his daughter Murph and then later on Jessica Chastain playing his daughter Murph, who both do an excellent job of, again, sort of helping realize that connection and love and everything else. I do. I think it's a great movie, and I think that it works because there's a lot more heart to it than other Nolan movies.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Do you have any opinions on it at all, Jaime?
I enjoy the film, and I was trying to think masterpiece. Interesting. I said, before I think about this for myself, let me go see what the internet says, because that's what everybody does, right? I went to Rotten Tomatoes, surprised at how low it is. It's 73% for the critics and a higher 86% for the viewing audience. I feel like it should be higher, at least on the critics side. Like, I think this is a really solid film. I think its grounded story is really great. It is definitely worth it for the memes as well. It feels like it definitely hit people of like they enjoyed it. They didn't just forget about it. I don't have a good criteria for like masterpiece. It's like I almost feel like, should there be a limit on them? Should there be some shows like Unspooled will do like a top 100 and everything else gets thrown into the sun, but then these 100 get put into space so that aliens can find it and see the best of what humanity has to offer. Masterpiece, probably. I think it's got a lot of real good merit to it. Is it perfect? No. But I do think that it fits pretty well for the kind of story I was trying to tell. I'm going to say yes. It's not a full bore like heck yeah kind of yes, but I'm like yes. I think ultimately, if the binary choice between masterpiece or not masterpiece, I think I'm going to say masterpiece.
Yeah, I can tell you that like I saw a picture in a magazine of the scene where the Millennium Falcon's sitting on the Death Star on the first movie, and you see all the stormtroopers lined up. That was what got me to see Star Wars. That one image, right? And I remember seeing a trailer for Interstellar weeks before it came out, and there was no question. I just got in my car and went and watched it, and I saw it on IMAX on the first go round when it first came out. And I remember, this is the kind of movie that I would go see by myself anyway. Like, if nobody else wants to go, I'm going anyway. Like, there's no question, right? I lost track of how many times I've seen this movie. If it's on TV, I'll stop and watch it for, a few minutes. It's like I feel about the same way about most of the Star Wars movies. I'll
I'll indulge in them. It's funny, because even though I've watched it like, I don't know, approaching 20 times, having seen it again on 70 millimeter IMAX with actual film print and with a film projector camera, I mean, I saw the flaws in the projection. I saw, there was parts where the blacks weren't deep enough. There's some really corny dialogue in the middle, especially when it's a movie about relativity, gravity and time travel, and space travel and all that kind of stuff. So there's some suspending of disbelief and all that kind of stuff. And it has this sort of, it's funny to see them masking up and putting on their goggles in the dust storm, which, having just gone through COVID for a few years, that seemed so unrealistic 10 years ago. And now it seemed like, yeah, of course you put masks on, right? And then also knowing some of the background stuff that I know about the movie, like there's video footage of people talking about the blight and how it affected them. And these are actual people. I mean, Alan Burson's one of them, but these are actual people who survived the dust storms in the 20s or 30s or whenever they were. So that's actually footage from a Ken Burns documentary. They use those people to talk about that stuff. I love the timey-wiminess of it. I love the special effects of it. I love the two robots in it.
Yeah.
They're pretty cool. Even though they're totally weird, right?
Yes.
Like not how you would think a robot would be, right? Somebody actually built one. I've seen footage on YouTube of somebody who built a TARS, right? Yeah, and like I said, it has its flaws, and there's the dialogue between Anne Hathaway's character and McConaughey's character, but like he's a real sort of, I mean, he's an astronaut. Like that's kind of, I think, the conceit as to why there's no question why he's not leaving his family as much as he's going to save mankind or the species of mankind, right? Which is why, because the big question is, why would you leave your family? In fact, halfway through the movie, he does. And it's in this review I was reading, the guy points out it's kind of funny that the center of the universe turns out to be his daughter's bedroom, right? Which, these are kind of fun things, and and there's a sort of a future being who they refer to as they, and at some point McConaughey or Cooper realizes that they are mankind in the future who figured out a way to communicate with them in the past, right? Sort of thing. And sort of the realistic thing, like Kip Thorne designed, they went to him. He was the technical advisor on the show. He described to them how a black hole would appear, and so they did this big giant rendering of the black hole. And it turns out that we saw they've actually photographed a black hole recently, and it looks exactly like Kip Thorne said it would look like in 10 years ago in Interstellar. There's a couple of other nods. There's a lot of nods to different movies like Star Wars. Obviously, 2001 Space Odyssey is a big nod in there. There's a lot of Kubrick-y kind of stuff in it. Apparently, Kubrick wanted to place, and in the Sentinel, which is the book that 2001 is based on, the monolith appears around Saturn. But the reason why they didn't use Saturn in the Kubrick movie is they didn't have the technology to reproduce the rings realistically enough, that he felt that's why he moved the monolith to Jupiter. So yeah, I mean, so if you're a sci-fi nut, if you're a space nut, I mean, the space tech is pretty cool. It's based on what we've actually seen in terms of people leaving the Earth with giant booster rockets and that kind of stuff. I love the relativity stuff, like the penalty of going to this one planet being affected by being too close to gravitational force, so that when they're down on the planet, time passes at what we see in the movie as regular time, and yet it's like they're gone for 20 years down to the surface kind of thing. I love those kind of mind games and that kind of stuff. So I this is a 5-star movie for me, for sure. And again, I'll watch it again and again and again and again. And it's funny because the day after we saw the 70 millimeter print, I started watching it again on the Vision Pro, and I'm halfway through right now. I didn't sit down and watch it end to end, but it was cool to sort of sit down in the theater, which is another reason why you go to theaters, right? I mean, the audience they were on their phones, and I mean, they were there obviously because they love the movie, but it wasn't like a big tribal experience because everybody's seen it already, right? But sitting down and seeing it in, having to spend, 160 minutes or whatever length it is, 106 minutes, no, 160 something, was just cool. Just sitting there and watching this movie in the theater and having to absorb that whole story again. And it had been long enough that I hadn't, points of the movie. And it's kind of like reading a book. You know how you read a book when you're in your 20s, and you read a book when you're in your 30s, and you read a book when you're later on in life. You get different things out of it. I got different things out of this watching as well that I didn't quite. I don't know if I got them the first time around or the second time around or the fifth time around, but I got different things out of this movie that I don't think I recognized before. So it's kind of cool. Good movie.
Yeah.
So that's 3 thumbs up.
Yeah. I mean, I think, obviously, my son is a massive Chris Nolan fan, has watched all of his movies. I have seen all but 2. His first couple, which I have here in the house now, thanks to my son, and I will watch at some point. I think he's an interesting filmmaker. I think he takes big swings, and I admire that in any person who's doing anything, especially in a creative endeavor like making films.
Well, this is supposed to be a Spielberg movie, right? Did you know that?
No.
It was originally a Spielberg movie. It was written by Chris Nolan's brother.
Yeah.
Right? But when Spielberg couldn't do it for whatever reason, he recommended that they ask Chris Nolan to do it. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's... I like that he is trying to push the envelope. Sometimes it works, and sometimes it's less effective. I think, I really enjoyed Xavier and I, my son and I, went to go see Tenet in the 70 millimeter format on IMAX, and that movie had come out during the pandemic, so we didn't have a chance to see it then. I had seen it on like a Blu-ray, but I'd never seen it on the screen. It works much better on a big screen.
Yeah, but I saw that when it came out.
It's still a challenging movie. Like it's very you gotta pay attention, and you gotta buy into a lot of abstract concepts. You can argue that even the way that the story for oh God, what was the war movie?
Inception?
No. He did.
The war movie. The
Dunkirk.
1947. Dunkirk.
Yeah. You could argue that even in that, the way he was sort of messing around with the timelines of the 3 different sort of arcs, the 1 week, the 1 day, and the 1 hour, and then sort of interspersing those. It didn't take long in the theater to figure out what he was doing, but I could see why some people wouldn't necessarily like the way that he was telling the story from 3 different timelines simultaneously would work for everybody. I think the criticisms are fair. I think he struggles with dialogue. I think he writes terrible women characters. Like he's not a perfect filmmaker, but like Denis Villeneuve, he thinks on just this master canvas. He thinks so big. That scene in IMAX of the wave coming in when they go down to the planet and they realize, oh, okay, we've landed here, and they are like, oh, we'll have to head that way towards the mountains, and then you see it getting closer, and at 50 feet tall, the screen, to see that moment of like abject terror when they realize, oh my God, we are about to go through like the worst washing machine cycle of all time, is incredible filmmaking. It is such there are a few moments where I've seen the movie before and I still got a bit of a shiver up my spine watching that, thinking like that spectacle.
It's a roller coaster ride for sure.
That spectacle, that is something that not a lot of filmmakers can really hit to make you. It is that proverbial edge of your seat film experience, so I'm really always really curious. Again, when I had heard he was working on Oppenheimer, I was like, this is going to be great, and it was, and obviously it really cemented his status as an A-list director, won him an Oscar and all that stuff. I'm curious to see where he decides to go next. if he's going to start sort of telling more of these sort of, stories. He works with his brother and does these sort of smaller stories or big stories, but his own stories, or if he's going to do something else, biographical or anything else in the future. I just look forward to whatever this guy wants to make for me. I feel like I'm buying season tickets. I will go and see whatever. I mean, my son sort of said, even if he was living, elsewhere, if he was, away at school or whatever, he's like, I would fly back to wherever there's a 70 millimeter screen to see his movies shown like this. And as we were leaving the theater the other day, we were chatting with a young man who had flown from Winnipeg that day.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
That the fellow that Xavier was chatting with on the way out.
So I didn't realize I didn't catch that part.
He said a couple of them flew in from Winnipeg because this is the closest that you could get to a 70 millimeter full aspect. IMAX. I think there's only 3 in Canada that have this like 70 millimeter capability to show it on a film, like an actual IMAX film projector. And he's like, I would do that. I would get on a plane to see this man's movies shown like that because they are just something special. I'm like, there's not a huge list of people that you would do that. There was a time you might have said Steven Spielberg. There was a time you might have said, name a director that you would make that effort for. I mean, Villeneuve is kind of there for me now, but
Kubrick,
sure,
Terry Gilliam.
Gilliam's a fair one. I think that would be, like his movies are really impressive visually. Also kind of batshit crazy, but sorry. I'll say bad crap so you can go back and edit that down. Bad crap crazy.
Well, I saw, like I said, I went and saw Tenet at Scotiabank Theater by myself because I knew I could buy a ticket that was away from people and I would wear my mask and sit at the very back of the theater and stuff like that, right? So there are a few directors that I will go see. Like I saw Terry Gilliam. I'm a TIFF member, so I can go see TIFF movies. Anybody can go see TIFF movies in Toronto at Bell Lightbox. But I saw Brazil and Time Bandits, neither of which I'd ever seen on a film print. Although I've seen them both several times. I own several copies of them, right? So there are, and again, the convenience I have is that I'm 15 minutes away from some of the best theaters in Toronto, right?
Yes.
So, yeah, the Vaughan one was a bit challenging for me because I had to get in a car and drive on the highway with all those monkeys. And so that was an investment in terms of traveling, right?
Yeah.
So same distance for you guys too, right?
Yeah, it's not close. It's kind of a strange thing in its way that is the best experience you can have if you are like a cinephile. If you really want to see the best of the best, that's the only theater around. There used to be another one that has been closed by our provincial government.
I hope they don't close down the I hope they don't close down. You're talking about Cinesphere, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, because Cinesphere is an amazing theater to see stuff, right?
I suspect we'll be seeing a Wrecking Ball soon, unfortunately.
Yeah, I saw Blade Runner there recently. I saw the David Bowie movie there during TIFF.
I saw Back to the Future there for the first time in 1985. That's where I saw it for the first time, and it was amazing.
I saw the first IMAX movie ever called North of Superior in that theater back in the day. Right? So that was, I think it was the first theater in the world, right? IMAX.
Yep.
You think he's going to take it down?
Yes. I think he's gonna. All of it is up for grabs, unfortunately.
Jerk. Did you see that he tried to take on Voldemort yesterday, and Voldemort's already shut him down?
Yes. I also saw Voldemort.
He who shall not be named on this podcast.
I also saw that Voldemort referred to our Prime Minister as the Governor of Canada, which was a little terrifying.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, the good thing about that is we're part of the British Commonwealth, right? So. I mean,
goody?
Just I got 2 words for you. If that ever happens, health care.
Yeah. Well, I think we'll need some if they decide they want our, make us the 51st state.
Yeah. Well, so it's funny because I don't know if Wab Kinew, who's the premier of Manitoba, said today, I'm making lists and I'm checking it twice. Like rather than doing what all the other premiers of Canada are doing and laying all their cards on the table so Voldemort can swipe his hand across the table and knock them to the floor,
He's holding his cards to his chest, which I think is a super wise move.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's going to be fun.
We'll see.
Only a few more days till Christmas, and then a few more days after that till the whole world falls apart.
So enjoy it while you can, kids.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yes, sirree, Bob. Yeah, if the Cinesphere goes down, I will be not a happy person.
Yeah, I mean, again, the other IMAX theater that was local to you is also now gone because the Science Center had an IMAX theater too.
Well, that one wasn't great. That was an OmniMax, and it had a curved screen, which is not great for watching, Hollywood movies on. Yeah. I saw I was telling you the other day, I saw the J.J. Abrams Star Trek there, and it was hard to watch because you had to keep moving your head to see from side to side of the screen. It's so big.
Yeah.
It's a planetarium, right? It's meant to be watching Hubble stuff, and it's like the Raj in Big Bang Theory, that sort of planetarium he did his shows in. It's like that, right? So a big curvy screen, not meant for square formats.
Jaime, have you been back to the theater very much post-pandemic? I know you were, for a while there, were still sort of not seeing a lot.
Ooh, I really have to think about what I've been to, but believe it or not, my family, when I go visit in a couple weeks in Texas, one of my aunts has convinced my mother that we should go see Sonic the Hedgehog 3. I'm sure there's a story there. I didn't want to stop because I'm like, yeah, sure, let's go see that one. I don't think my mom's seen either of the first two. I'm not sure that it'll really matter. I'll be like, hey, do you know Idris Elba? Yeah. Oh, that's that guy. Oh, really? Hey, you know Keanu Reeves? Yeah. That's the other hedgehog. Oh, no, really? I'm like, yeah. Listen. It'll be fun for that. And definitely shows Jim Carrey. So, there's going to be some after movie discussions, I'm sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, this year was a pretty quiet one. I think probably all in, I might have seen half a dozen movies in the theater. But I mean, yeah, I was looking ahead to like what's coming, and that'll be one of the categories for our Spockies is, what movies are we looking forward to next year? And it's like, yeah, it's pretty incredible, the amount of stuff that's coming out next year. And again, that makes sense. This year was slow because of the strike last year, the strikes plural that there were last year. But like next year is just bonkers. Like, Superman Legacy's coming. They're doing Captain America, another Mission Impossible movie, Fantastic Four's coming. And then, at Thunderbolts, there's just a bunch of like, not necessarily for me, but like they're doing Snow White, they're doing How to Train Your Dragon, they're doing Wicked Part 2, they're doing Lilo and Stitch live action, they're doing, like all these like, pretty much, Minecraft movie, Karate Kid movie, like all these things that are just going to, drive people to the theater. And then, Ballerina, the new John Wick spin-off's coming, the new Knives Out movie's coming. Like there's just so much content coming next year. It's crazy. But yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see what, I just listed like 15 or 20 movies, what will get people to actually come out and what won't. Are you both fans? I was thinking about this. So then next year we're getting 28 Years Later, the sequel to
that looks good, doesn't it?
28 Days and 28, was it months, weeks? I don't know what the second one was.
It's 28 days later, 28 weeks later, and this is
28 years
28
later.
Years later.
Yeah,
which sounds implausible, but
yeah, I mean, do you like? Are you both fans of this? With Danny Boyle, right?
I saw 28 Days in the theater.
Okay.
I saw the other one on DVD or whatever it was back in the day. So I don't know. I'm kind of tempted to go see this one.
Yeah.
I saw the first one. I never saw the sequel, so I'm going to have to...
Is it the same director, though? That's what I wanted to know.
Yeah, Danny Boyle, yeah. And same writer. It's Alex Garland is the writer who was also... he's a writer and director. He just did Civil War, right? That was his.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll be curious to see with all of these choices what people are most looking forward to of all these different options next year. Like, what is the thing? Is there enough goodwill that people are going to be most interested in the new Superman movie? Are they more interested in like a strong showing from Marvel again. Good but not great. Not I wouldn't say A-level Marvel stuff. We're getting, new Captain America, Thunderbolts, and Fantastic Four. We're not getting like Avengers. We're not getting like X-Men. We're not getting like the Crackers. But all three of those movies look good. I know for Jaime it's Karate Kid.
Yeah, there we go.
Paw Patrol.
They are doing a Dogman movie next year, so maybe that'll be the one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Again, it's pretty bonkers. And I don't know if all these are coming next year, but like there's a remake of The Running Man that's scheduled right now for next year. Zootopia 2, there's a lot of good content.
Yeah. You guys are ready for some breaking news?
Yes.
All right, breaking news. Google and Android have come out with a competitor to the Vision Pro.
Oh.
Yeah.
Is it called the Vision Amateur or?
It's called. It's from Samsung. Like they surprise, Samsung makes the screens for Apple too. So called Project Muhan, planned for consumer release in 2025. So people are looking at getting hands-on versions of it right now, and it looks very similar to, like, in terms of like making your Windows computer look big on the screen and stuff like that. It's got a hard strap instead of a stop. It looks like the Vision Pro.
Yeah.
Got a light shield and
so it'll be like a typical Apple versus Android thing. It'll be cheaper.
Yeah. And cheaper, better, faster, stronger, whatever.
More customizable, Apple won't have. But it won't have the
hackable, easily hackable. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Lots of viruses. Yeah, that kind of. Well, it's Android, right? So Android XR is what they're calling it, right? So
yeah.
Android's gotten better over the years, but I'm just reading about this right now as I'm scrolling on this device. So yeah, I'll add it to my. By the way, in case you didn't know, I have a Vision Pro newsletter that comes out every week, so this will get added to it. Yeah. So yeah. What do you know?
There you go.
Interesting that when I look it up, I only see like what's clearly a CGI render of the device itself.
Yeah. There's a surprise.
There should be like, somebody just use your iPhone in a mirror or have somebody else do it for you if you can't see through it.
Just paste in a picture of the Vision Pro. You won't.
Oh my God, this thing is so much better. It's coming out next year. Like, why are you bothering me this now? Like, not you, Tim. You're diligently reporting the supposed news. I'm pointing at the lack of real news from the people who are like making the presentation. Like,
yeah, I mean, like last week we were all saying Vision Pro is dead, and now they're saying, oh, look what's coming out, right? So yeah, this is going into my newsletter on coming out on the weekend. So stay tuned.
Yeah.
With one standout advantage, it says. Oh, I got to find out what that was. It goes bury the lead, right? So where is the standout advantage? What's the advantage? What, it's not Apple? Is that the advantage?
Yeah. And it's compatible with your Android phone.
Oh, look, Samsung and Google aren't yet sharing any key details like the resolution, the weight, the field of view, or the price. Oh, really? All the things that they've been cracking about Vision Pro on, right? I guess it won't have privacy problems, I guess, right?
Yeah. Just wait till they start sending you those packed Russian ads on your visual device.
No, we knew that the other companies were working on stuff as soon as Vision Pro was announced, right? Which is what, a year and a half ago, 18 months ago?
Yeah. Yep.
How long ago was Vision Pro announced, Jaime?
I feel like it's been about 18 months.
Was it 2023? No, I was still working at Spot Hero when it was announced, so 2022.
Release date. The Google says February 2nd of what
2022.
Year? Was it this year?
Or no, it came I don't mean when it came. Yeah, no, it went on sale on February 20 this year, February 2024. But I saw it. I went down to Apple and played with it. I think it was announced. It was announced the year before or sometime. Oh man.
So it looks like WWDC 2023. So I'd put it in June 23.
Wikipedia.
But yeah, about a year and a half.
Donate to Wikipedia.
I wasn't too far off in my guess.
What's that?
So the Vision Pro was announced at Apple's 2023 WWDC.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
Because it was in August when I went down to try it out.
So that makes sense. They had that a couple months later.
Okay, so... Okay, yeah. So, okay. Trying to find the... Oh, here we go. Wikipedia article. Huh, okay. Okay. Right. Cool. little competition is healthy. So you probably won't have a tethered battery or something like that. It'll have one that floats around in the air behind you or something, right?
That would be fun.
Yeah. Cool.
All right, we'll call for a week.
On that happy note, yeah, I have a meeting in the morning, so
All right.
we should call it.
All righty.
Bye.
Next
everybody.
week,
Bye.
the final episode. Ah!
Oh no,
Ah!
no! When do we get our next Star Wars fix? Star Trek fix? Sorry. When do we get our next Star Trek fix?
They have not said yet. 2025. We know we're getting Strange New Worlds, but we don't know when. So I guess it's Section 31 is the next thing, right?
So you know what the big question is, of course, right? Whether you're able to watch 3D movies from Apple or from Google or whoever on this new device from Project Moron, what it was called? Moron? I don't know.
Mulan.
That's the big question. Will there be a Disney app?
Already the hate is flying. Oh, Project Moron. Here we go.
I know, yeah. All right.
All right.
Bye.
See you guys.
Bye.